This is the Impressions Xchange podcast.
Impressions Xchange podcast,
where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews inside the commercial, packaging, wide format, and in-plant communities.
Hi, and welcome to the Impressions Xchange podcast. I'm Denise Gustavson, the editorial director of the Impressions Group and editor-in-chief of Wide Format Impressions. For the last 6 weeks, we've all been dealing with an unprecedented situation, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted businesses and economies across the globe. Businesses of every size and shape and across every industry have responded and reacted in different ways. We've seen companies close down operations entirely, while others are running full steam ahead. And then there are a lot of companies that are kind of somewhere in the middle of all of this. Now, in many cases, having a plan in place before the pandemic hit has helped many companies to weather this crisis a little easier and maybe at least with a little less panic. Today, it's my pleasure to have Elaine Scrima. She's VP of Operations for GSP Companies, which is headquartered down in Clearwater, Florida. And she's with me here today. So welcome, Elaine.
Good morning, Denise. How are you doing today?
Good. Now, my first question, of course, is how are you doing? How are your company and employees doing? I mean, we know you have great weather down in Florida right now, but how are we doing overall?
Well, we're doing very well. As you may know, we're headquartered in Clearwater, but we do support facilities in 3 other locations. And so, our plan has to kind of encompass the entire company. But because our clientele, we mainly support essential businesses. So while our volume is down some, we've been able to augment or shift that volume to COVID signage, such as floor graphics, counter barriers, curbside pickup signage, thank you signage for first responders, or Feeding America type programs that many of our retailers are participating in. So we've been able to, while it's not what we had anticipated, we're still kind of full steam ahead.
Which is really great to hear, because I know a lot of companies have shifted entirely to doing PPE just because a lot of their business has really, really slowed down. But it's good to hear that you've at least been able to do kind of a mix, but keep everybody up and working. But now for you guys, you had a plan in place. I mean, with your headquarters in Florida, I'm guessing you have to be planning ahead for any kind of crisis, whether it's, a hurricane for Florida. But you probably had something in place ahead of time.
We did. I think we were able to react remarkably well to the pandemic, honestly. While our business continuity plan didn't specifically address a pandemic, many of the components of our existing plan were applicable, and we were able to institute them immediately.
I don't think anybody's business continuity plan right now did really have a pandemic in mind. Like I said, for you guys, it's probably more so in the range of hurricanes, but for someone out in California, it could be earthquakes or fires or, tornadoes for the Midwest. I mean, there's different things that can impact a company. I know just before Printing United last year, there was tornadoes in Dallas that hit several print shops. I know 2 print shops that we were working with. Specifically with the NAPCO media team. So, that's one of those things that, we're kind of concerned about. But
yeah, I was gonna say, it's very important to plan for those things. And, to your point, I think we're more cognizant of it because we're in Florida. So we get, we kind of fine tune, we do an annual review of our plan anyway. We make sure that we have any components that we need in advance, particularly in advance of hurricane season. But, those things are, whether it's a fire or a tornado or power disruption or water disruption or whatever, your plan really it really kind of evolves as your business evolves. And so, obviously the part that we, even with hurricanes, that we had to kind of plan for was this kind of work from home environment. And so, a portion of our team members currently work remotely, so there wasn't a big change for them other than travel restrictions. And then there is a portion of our staff that is office-based, but also had the ability to work remotely. So it was easy to kind of flip that switch. And then the remainder, of course, were our frontline workers. And so What we did in particular to the response to the pandemic was we implemented a COVID team to ensure that we were meeting CDC requirements on our operations floor. Very similar to what most essential businesses have done. We printed necessary signage, floor markings, distributed masks. We take temperatures of employees as they enter the building. We implemented additional sanitation measures, and everything we tried to do everything we could possibly do in order to make our team members feel comfortable and safe walking into our facilities. So
Which I think is key.
Yeah, and I was going to say the key to all of that really though was communication to every employee in every facility about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we were doing it. And we've been very transparent. And I think that, because the employees saw that we were kind of calm and kind of had our act together, they didn't panic either.
Yeah, which is really, really fantastic. Now, I mean, like you said, I mean, you were able to flip a switch. So, I mean, that helps, I think, the employees also. Not only are they feeling safe because they already know kind of what's required of them. Certain departments are just going to automatically that were, based in the office are now just going to go work from home. And they kind of have their marching orders, which I think makes it a lot easier.
It does. And the important thing to note is that we didn't have to develop these procedures on the fly. Yes, to your point, the pandemic was different than a natural disaster, but the infrastructure, the planning, and the preparedness was already in place. And that's why, from our perspective, having a business continuity plan is so important. And the other aspect with business continuity planning is it's never finished, because as your business evolves and grows, your plan has to evolve and grow with it. So, as you mentioned, every business can be struck by either an isolated event that's unique to your business or location, or by a broader event that impacts your city or county or state. And it can be catastrophic, such as a tornado, hurricane, flooding, earthquake, wildfire, as you alluded to, or it can be as isolated as a loss of power or water for a shorter period of time. And so there's many, we kind of, our business continuity plan, as an example, or a good business continuity plan should have levels built into it. So we kind of approach it from our business is going to be down from 6 to 12 hours. What do we need? Our business is going to be down from 12 to 24 hours. What is included in that part of the plan? 24 to 72 hours. What does that plan look like? And then 72 hours plus, what does that plan look like? The longer the anticipated downtime, the more detailed the plan. There can be as little or as much as you want included, or whatever you feel comfortable with to have included.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, how detailed do some of these plans need to be? I mean, obviously it's, it has to impact so many different departments too, as, IT to accounting to, I mean, even interfacing with the people that are still on the floor, especially now that are still doing some of the actual printing and finishing.
Absolutely. So, everybody owns their portion of the plan, but even the best orchestra needs a conductor. So as the business owner or president of your business, really needs to be the person that drives the plan to begin with. And so, to your point, we include all aspects, IT, accounting, marketing, engineering, operations, HR. We want to make sure that in those windows that I alluded to previously, what does IT need to do? What does HR need to do? What does accounting need to do? And then we tie that whole into a much larger plan. So the longer the downtime, the more detailed the plan. It can be as little or as much as you want included, or whatever you feel comfortable with. But the plan should include. I kind of look at it, and I do this personally for my home for hurricane season as well as for the business. The plan should include, what do I need to do to protect the business physically before the event? This is important if you have time to prepare. So if you get a tornado warning, or you have obviously a hurricane, you have sometimes a week out to plan. Not so much with earthquakes and others. So it's important that you have different aspects of the plan buttoned up. But what do you need to do to protect the business before the event? What do you need to do to protect the business physically after the event? You may have broken windows, you may have a punctured roof, you may have, your building may be partially exposed. What kind of things do I need to do to protect my business in those instances? And then what do I need to do to maintain and provide service to my customers and accounts? And then lastly, what do I need to do to reopen my business? And those components all have different elements to it. And depending on how big or how small you are, will also have different components to it. The plan will be different if your customer base is local. It will be different if your customer base is within a 500-mile radius. It will be different if you have a national customer base or an international customer base. Because when a catastrophe hits your business, you do mostly business on the other coast, those people have no concept of it's life goes on for them. So you have to kind of almost maintain as much transparency, as much seamlessness to your operation as possible. And so that's what we try to aim with our plan. And the plan will be different if you have one location or multiple locations. The plans will be different if you are partially shut down or fully shut down. But the key to that is thinking about and having a plan before you need it, because it's much easier to be inclusive than it is to be reactive. Because if you're reacting, you're caught in the crowd with everyone else being reactive, and you often will not be able to secure what you need. That's evident as we've seen what's going on in our grocery stores today. People are reacting. Now, I'm not saying, go buy 72 rolls of toilet paper, but do you have plywood for your windows? Do you have tarps for your roof? Do you have water? Do you have batteries? Do you have flashlights? Do you have those types of things? The first year we went through this, when we first implemented our business continuity plan, the great thing is, we had flashlights. Well, guess what flashlights mean? I can only use one hand. So the next year we got flashlights that go on people's heads. So every year it evolves, it grows, we learn what works, what didn't, and we kind of just review. Like I said, we get together annually, we review it. We make sure that we have whatever supplies that we need. We make sure that our communication plan is buttoned up. And we also found that by having conversations with vendor partners in advance, and even forming reciprocal alliances with other businesses that do what you do, that you can either outsource work with or outsource work to, or that can help you with production. Working out those types of agreements in advance is very important. And I would also caution you that those types of arrangements should include some type of confidentiality or non-disclosure agreement to protect your client list. So, it's good to be able to say, hey, if my business goes down, I know I can count on so-and-so, and vice versa. So it's a reciprocal agreement, kind of you scratch my back, I scratch yours, to make, just like I said, for our customers, it's business as usual. Doesn't matter what's happening in Florida or Wisconsin or Utah or where, it's business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, for you, especially if it's a localized event, so something happens for your Florida location, you do have two other, production facilities that might be able to help. But in some cases, if it's, like now the pandemic, it's across the United States, it's across the world. So,
Yes.
who are those other folks that can help you maybe in a local area, so that way you can do a local delivery?
Yes.
Especially because I know we've had issues with delivery being delayed and other things. I know, even just for goods that are needed.
And most people have been, because it is more broad scope of an incident that's occurring now. Most people have been a little bit more tolerant and a little bit more understanding about delays. It's not necessarily delays, on businesses' parts. It's just the demand on supplies. So,
Yeah.
As an example, PETG and Lexan, those types of materials, harder to get. And so what we're telling our customers is, hey, it's not that we can't get this stuff. We just need a little bit more planning. It can't be I need this tomorrow kind of thing, just because we have, limited supplies that we can get our hands on very quickly.
Yeah. And I know some suppliers are also limiting, how many pieces that you can get. So even if you can get supplies, you can only get a minimum amount. So I know that's been some difficulties as well.
Yeah. So, so that's what we're doing. We're communicating with our customers on a regular basis, and we're saying, hey, even if you're thinking about doing this in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it is, give us a heads up now, so that we can plan and we can work with our vendor partners and to say, if nothing else, we're in line. So again, when I talked about communication, not only internal communication with your employees, but your external communication, keeping in touch with your vendors, keeping in touch with other, print partners in the industry. What are you guys doing? That's one of the things that's been awesome, in many of the publications and newsletters I see and I read, how the community, the industry as a whole has come together to help one another out and to help first responders out, and how companies have been able to pivot so quickly, to do things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone. So it's been wonderful to see, honestly.
No, I agree. And now, like you talking about your communication plans and all of those different pieces. I mean, that all has to be in that business continuity plan, because otherwise, I mean, people have to own different parts of it. People have to understand exactly what they need to do to make sure that the business moves forward.
Yes, and the nice thing about, we actually use an app to communicate with our employees, so we can push a notification out, and it goes right to our employees' phones. And the nice thing about that is, we don't have to make sure that we've got, hey, did you update your phone list with HR, whatever. It's all, it's tied to them personally,
Hmm.
and they get the updates automatically. They have a chance to comment back, or ask questions right through that. And so we're able to then, address any concerns from the field immediately.
Which is great, because I mean, that communication between, management and the executive team and the employees, I think is key also to making sure that they feel that they're connected, that they're informed, and that also that, everybody's working together and pulling together to make sure that this all works out well for everybody.
Yeah. And it's been very important, like for me personally, I could work from home. I choose not to. I choose to come into the office. I choose to come in and go out. I go out on the floor. I talk to the employees. How are you doing? Just in more on a personal level than on a business level, just to make sure everybody's okay. And I think that they take some comfort, to be honest, to see the managers out on the floor, and talking and interacting with people. It's just kind of a calm, it's more of a calming thing. It's more of a like, okay,
Hmm.
they're in the trenches with us. We've maintained as much normalcy as possible. We have a fun day where we bring food in, or we bring ice cream in, or we do those types of things. But we just had to change the way that we did it. So now we only bring 10 people into the break room at a time. We keep them 6 feet apart. So we're still able to do the things that we've always done. We just have to do it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Now, in talking just a little bit about, business continuity planning in general. Now, I mean, you mentioned that, some of the department heads, I guess this is also going to depend on how large a company is. I mean, if it's a small company, 10 and less employees, it's going to be the responsibility of the business owner themselves to really come up with this business continuity plan. But in some medium or larger companies, I'm guessing that can shift across to department heads, and other things to really start thinking about all the needs of their departments. Is that kind of how it would work?
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, obviously, from my perspective, and again, the reason that I like to keep so close to the front line is they're the people that have to do the work. So they're going to know what it's going to need to keep the work going if for some reason it stops. And in most instances, it's loss of power, electricity that we've had to deal with, in years past. And again, that could be just a bad thunderstorm and you lose power, or that could be, an event where we've lost power for an extended period of time. But they're the people. So the department managers get with their teams, then then everything kind of gets funneled up, and we go, okay, what do we have to do to keep shipping going? What do we have to do to keep pre-press going? What do we have to do to keep IT going? What do we have to do to keep accounting going? And we ask those questions, and then we kind of make a list, and then we go, okay, do we have a plan for that? What's the plan for this? And then that's kind of how we started to build the plan out. So the first year, I mean, this was really born out of necessity for us. We implemented it probably about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
The first time we did it, it was because we didn't have a plan, and we lost power for a couple of days, and we're like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? How are we going to do this? So after that, we took the next year, literally, and we built that plan over the course of the year, because we said, we're not going to be in this situation again. And we've never been since. And it's been it's great because it's just like, well, when this happened, we were like, okay, well, we're just going to flip into business continuity plan, level 1, boom, done. It wasn't scrambling around. There wasn't panic. It wasn't, what am I not thinking about? What did I forget? And oh no, I go to do this. Oh, I didn't think about that. When you plan, when you don't have to plan, it makes your plan that much stronger.
Oh God,
because
yeah.
you're not reacting.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's definitely a collaborative effort. Um, and then you have to decide. You may put all these things in your plan and go, well, you know what? There's 20 things on here. I can only afford to do 5. What are the 5 I have to have? And then the next year, you've already got those 5. What's the next 5? And so you build it out. You can't just say, I'm going to do all these things at one time, because some of the things, cost money. And so you have to kind of step into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I know one thing you mentioned earlier is talking about like the physical security of your business. I mean, God forbid, a tornado goes through and it rips a roof off, or, you have your building is exposed. I mean, being able to put a tarp on, to be able to cover your windows, but also to protect, I guess, a lot of your customers' information as well. Cause I mean, you're dealing with data, you're dealing with other things to make sure that nobody else has access to that kind of stuff because of one of these kind of situations as well, probably is part of it too.
It is, fortunately for us, most of what we do these days is all computer based. So a lot of our production orders, a lot of, all of our inventory, everything is computer based. And so, we obviously, we have a great IT department, and what we've done, we've moved to a lot of, cloud-based servers so that information is not stored here at the facility and it can be accessed anywhere. So I
Which
can,
is good.
again, which is just another one of those flip the switch. Now, instead of, something pointing to this facility, it all points to another facility. Thankfully, we have the luxury of being able to do that. But even if you're a single location business owner, putting your information in a cloud will definitely help you to be able to, because you may have power at home, but you don't have power at work. And so then you can access your information. You can contact your customers. You have your business contacts. You have your vendor contacts, those types of things. So
Mhm.
can't stress backing up. Got to have your backups. You got to do your backups on a regular basis. Make sure you have your current information. But that is definitely, that was a big thing. Like I said, 5 or 6 years ago, we had all our servers right here on site. Well, so if the servers are in the site that goes down, I don't care if you have 50 locations, nobody can access anything.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, God forbid, like, something happens and part of the building is destroyed, and then somebody just decides to walk in and just borrow a server or borrow something,
Yes. Yeah,
before you guys
exactly.
can go there to secure the facility, then there's that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So it's, that's the important part. And just, I mean, in some instances as well, I mean, your business continuity plan has to include how am I going to replace this equipment? And how fast can I replace it? Because, some of these presses, lead time is 6, 8, 10 weeks on some of these things. And so
Hmm.
you have to have that part of your plan built out as well. And so there's so many things. It's like, oh yeah, what about this? And oh yeah, what about that? And oh, I forgot about this. That's why I said the plan evolves and the plan grows. And the best way to know what's missing from your plan is when you go to put it in place and you go, yeah, I didn't
Oh,
think about that. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't think about that part.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, that's how your plan gets more detailed. It gets more specific to different, situations. And the more situations you deal with, not that you want to go through crisis after crisis,
Exactly.
but it certainly helps, just figure out what's essential to your business versus what's nice to have as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because and you have to make those decisions, a lot of times, because you, like I said, you make your list, and some of those things have dollar values next to them, and you go,
Hmm.
okay, this is the most important thing that I need. If I do this, I'm not going to be able to do this, this, and this. How's it going to impact the business, and how am I going to compensate for that? So it's a lot of if this, then that, if, not, then this, kind of charting out and game planning for. And, that takes people, like you said, from all the departments, because everybody looks at the business from how their function impacts the business. And so I think of it from an operations standpoint. I might not think of it from an accounting standpoint. Oh yeah, well, we still have to do, direct deposit, or, what about employees that don't have direct deposit? How are we going to get checks to them? Or how are we going to do, so all those things, I mean, there's just so many things that people don't think about.
Yeah, or that we just take for granted. As an employee, I take for granted that my money is just going to go in direct deposit. But
Yep.
unless,
Absolutely.
it's not something that I really think about as, an employee. But of course, as a manager, you're thinking out, various other things.
Yes.
And make
So
sure that you're.
it's really important. That's why it's really important to have input from all those different, whether you have a person that functions in that capacity, or you have, a person that functions in multiple capacities across the departments, that they think about a business continuity plan from an HR perspective, from an accounting perspective, from a marketing, IT, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned early on that like having this kind of business continuity planning also helps your company to recover afterward.
Yes.
How does that,
Yes.
how does it really help with that?
Well, like I said, it kind of goes back to communication. So we've even gone as far as to say, as an example, okay, what if these people don't have internet access, or what if they don't have phone access, or cell towers are down, or this or that. So we've even like created, a landing page or a place that people can go, here's my shift. Am I working or am I not working? And in some instances, there may be a specific function of the business that can still do their thing. So there's still things that can happen, even if I don't have power, as an example. Not a lot, but there are things. But a lot of times the employees are very willing to come in and go, what do we need to do to help get the business back up and running? And so we kind of have a team that we've earmarked in advance that says, you're going to be we're going to have a cleanup team. If you can get in, you're going to come in, we're going to help with cleanup. And that could be, depending on the level of destruction that's occurred. I mean, in some instances, it could just be, some water damage, or we might have to pick up some debris, or we might have to do something. We've been very fortunate where we've not had any physical damage to our buildings at all.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But having those teams, then what people can and cannot do as well.
Yes.
Can they repair, if
Yes.
there's a window broken, do we have the skills on site, within the staff to help to fix that?
Yes.
Or do we need to have, do we need to contract something like that out, or, to have all those numbers and things already done?
Yeah,
Definitely
we have all that built out. Like I said, thankfully we've got pretty good engineering teams in all of our facilities. And so it's more of a, when are you going to get this wood off my window, than it is, because it's kind of dreary when all your windows to your building are boarded up and you're in this like cave, right? And so it's like, please take this wood off my window. But I mean, those are just, those are the types of things, do we, even something as simplistic as, do we have enough water for the people that we do bring in after the fact, because vending machines don't work, as an example. Or, do we have cash on hand so that we can get gas for generators and those types of things, because the ATMs don't work, or the gas pumps don't work because the credit card readers aren't working. I mean, you could make yourself crazy, including every detail that you possibly could include. But, there and again, beginning of every year or annually in May, what do? We take all the generators in, we get them tuned up, we make sure they're running, we go buy gas, we have everything that we need. So we don't have to go, okay, there's no gas at this gas station, or we're running down here to get, we're not running all over town, we're prepared. So it's just about, it's kind of tapping back into your good Girl Scout and Boy Scout days, being prepared, making your list, knowing what you need, and, just kind of saying, this is what I have to have versus this is what I would like to have versus this would be a nice to have.
Yeah. And I know it sounds like from what you're saying, I mean, GSP Companies is in very, very good shape because of the planning that they have in place. which was really,
Yeah,
really fantastic to hear.
yeah, credit to our CEO, Jeff's a planner, and he likes to make sure things are buttoned up, and we were on board with it because we saw what a difference it made in year 2 and year 3 and year 4, and now in this particular situation, there's absolutely no panic. We're just like, okay, we'll go to level 2 business continuity plan, and everybody, and that was the beauty of it. Everybody knew what that meant. The employees knew what that meant. They knew what the process was to access whatever files they needed to. They knew everything. And so it's very, I think it's comforting for them. It's definitely comforting for us. And like I said, we didn't miss a beat. So I'm very thankful that, for the infrastructure that we have in place to make that possible.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that, if some companies don't have, that this is something, maybe they have time now, especially if they are a little bit slower on jobs, to start preparing and maybe starting a business continuity plan.
And again, you don't have to start, it doesn't have to be elaborate and, 170 steps or anything like that, but to have something in place is better than having nothing in place. And every year, like I said, if you need to just put one more piece of the puzzle in place, hopefully you will never have to use it. That would be the best thing. But if you did, I would think every business owner would feel better that they had a plan rather than going, now what the heck do I do?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like us having, medical insurance.
Yeah,
We know we
exactly.
need it, but you don't want to use it, but you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you have it just in case you need to.
Yeah. Yep. And we spend a lot of money on that every year, and it's no different. But that's what I'm saying. If you kind of put the plan together in phases or pieces, then it doesn't have to be a big financial strain on you to kind of put a plan together. And in many instances, that initial year of investment, and again, it depends on how big your company is, but I think most companies probably have done this. I mean, I don't know many companies that use, or I shouldn't say any, I don't know many companies that still use desktop units for their computers. Most people are on laptops now. So now it's just making sure you got VPN connections and you've got secure, that your network's secure and you can do this. And once you kind of invested in making sure all those people have laptops, that investment's done, other than you're cycling through and replacing them on an as-need basis. But those are the types of things, once you buy your plywood for your windows, it's bought. Once you
Yeah, unless
buy
something
your
happens
generator,
drastically
right?
to that plywood,
Yeah,
it's there, it's
exactly.
available.
Yes. And once you have your generators, you have them. So those types of things. And so there is some initial investment, but once, by end of year 2, or possibly even some into year 3, because you think of new things that you might need, or new things come out that are better than what you have. The investment is really more on an upfront. And again, it depends on how big your organization is.
Yeah, and also, I mean, even talking about generators, depending upon if you've gotten a new capital equipment purchase in the last year or 2, you might need a different generator or another generator to make sure that, you can keep all of your equipment up and running.
Yes, exactly.
As the case may be.
Exactly. Yeah. So
All right,
it's
Elaine, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today.
it's
Is there any, I
like I
guess,
told you, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think every business should have some type of plan, and and again, I know it's saved us on a couple of occasions. So hopefully, if anybody can take anything positive away from this, is no matter how simplistic or how detailed, get yourself a plan.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a planner, so the whole thought of a business continuity plan is just, it makes a whole lot of sense for me, just to make sure that everything is all, as you said, buttoned up, and then you can kind of just keep rolling.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks again for the time today, Elaine. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.
Great. And now for those of you who are interested in learning more about business continuity planning, one resource that you can look to is actually the Department of Homeland Security's Ready page, ready.gov. Under the Ready Business menu, there's specific resources, guidance, and worksheets to help walk you through the process of creating emergency response plans and business continuity plans. It's never too soon to start creating your company's playbook so you can weather the next crisis. So to all our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Impressions Xchange podcast. Stay safe and healthy.